tell you that we're losing out on the type of jobs that are no longer being taught in school. Auto mechanic was mentioned as one of them, but it sounds very basic, but these are the types of jobs that are slipping away. And the other jobs in the technical fields are also slipping away. My wife teaches science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at a community college in partnership with the universities, and I see what a difference it makes to our kids when they get into these classes, and it's amazing the things that they're accomplishing. Thank you.
Al, same question to you.
Okay, when I got to California in 1981 with 48 bucks in a convertible, and the saying was in California the streets are paved with gold, now they were paved with people with signs that say I won't work for food. Community college was free. It was the crown jewel, the shining star of the entire education system in California. And I forget if it was Wilson or DuMajan that put the fee on. I went to a private film directing school in Santa Monica, and I went to Santa Monica Community College for real estate and film courses. Now they're rioting because they triple the rates in the summer. I mean, there's unrest all over the world in all kinds of governments. There's revolutions in the Middle East, there's revolutions in Africa, there's riots and people discontent with their government in Europe. So if you look at the school system and the fraud and corruption that's involved there, Los Angeles Santa Monica School District is a perfect example. At the last League of Women Voters Forum, came up, No Child Left Behind. Everybody agreed. I said, I know I'm not a politician, I'm supposed to tell you what you want to hear. I got to talk fast, it's 30 seconds, but it doesn't work, it's broken. Teachers have told me since then, it's called No Student Left Standing, because 40 cents of every dollar from the state goes to education, 20 cents of that goes to administrators and their pensions, and the kids never see a penny of that for education. It's wasted, squandered, stolen, and it's a corrupt system. The whole thing needs to be overhauled.
Thank you. David, your positions on education, the funding mechanism, and also helping or strengthening the community colleges.
Well, my father was a school teacher for 33 years, and my sister is a school teacher up in Seattle, Washington, and I try to spend as much time as I can volunteering in my kids' classroom, going in and seeing firsthand what's happening. And I can tell you these teachers are under so much stress and so much pressure to teach to these tests, and that has to change immediately. Unless that happens, we're losing out on so many great teachers. They're choosing to go into other professions and into other fields. And we have to allow these great teachers to do what they wanted to get into, and that's to teach, not to teach these tests. So that's something that obviously needs to be changed right away. Tenure is something that we need to take a good hard look at. I think it's something that's really, really hurting our education system and needs to be reformed. And when it comes to community colleges, I've been spending a lot of time at Oxnard College. I've been endorsed by the student body president there, and I've spent a lot of time out there listening to students and hearing what's going on. And these are really the colleges for the working class and the middle class and the poor, and they're just being basically assaulted. And we have to make sure we do everything we possibly can to protect those schools.
Okay, thank you. And we have a ton of questions. Many of them are directed at individual candidates. I'm going to try to do my best to get some of those in right now. Linda, you're up first on this one. And Linda, you have said previously that you would not vote to repeal the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy, but that cutting deficits is very important. The question is, what specific programs would you cut to reach $1 trillion in savings?
I think you're quoting me wrong, Mr. Marin.
Well,
what I said
is
my belief that I don't want to go to having to increase taxes when there are other things that we can do. I'm not a die-hard one way or the other, and I think that's part of the problem that we have. I'm willing to talk, I'm willing to negotiate, and I'm willing to work. And I understand how important it is that we have a huge deficit. And we're about to see another battle for that deficit ceiling. And I'll tell you right now, if the right wing and the Tea Party are going to push it again till we get to the brink, that is going to hurt not only our nation, but the global economy. So I think it's important not to have people that are strident one way or the other, but actually willing to come to the table. I mentioned previously some of the things that I would look at from getting our troops home from Afghanistan. That will save money. From better more efficient ways of doing healthcare, because that is a large cost to our government. There are several programs that I can see that we can look at for efficiencies. There is a lot of Medicare fraud, for example, that needs to be dealt with. And I don't consider having corporations have to pay their fair share as a tax increase. I actually think that we all need to pay our fair share. And yeah, sometimes it is going to hurt, but it is really important, I think, to make sure that we can protect our economy. And we're seeing horrible things happen in Greece right now for failure of their ability to protect it.
Thank you. Jess, a couple of questions for you. I'm going to sort of combine them, but number one is you've raised less money than some of the other Democrats on this panel, and you also are, phrase this right, so you've raised the least amount of money of some of these candidates, and what will you do to try and, or what makes you think you'll be able to be elected? And if elected, how do you plan to represent the East County?
Well, unless they have a different type of human beings on the East County than they do on the West County, I guess I would have a difficulty. But since we're all the same, I think we're the same species here, aren't we? East County, would you raise your hand so I can recognize what species you are? West County. So, I think, there's homes in foreclosure in Thousand Oaks, and there's homes in foreclosure in Oxnard and Ventura. I think we're all suffering from the same issues here. I think I'm quite capable of recognizing what the issues is. As a homegrown person here in Ventura County my entire life, I understand what you have been through and what you are living through right now, and I understand the issues that are facing people around the kitchen table. So East County, West County is no different. You may be earning more on the East County than they are earning on the West County, but we still have the same problems. We're still trying to put our kids through school. We're still trying to pay our mortgages. I don't think I would have any problem working with people in the East or West County. As I say, we're all facing the same problems, and especially those are the problems that I'm very good at solving. I'm a very good negotiator. I know how to work with people. I know how to build those bridges, and I know how to get things done. And in the final analysis, that's what we need. Someone that knows how to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, the question to you, the person in the audience is stating that you had a deadline of May 11th to submit a response to the Federal Election Commission, I believe. And have you submitted that response? It was regarding an inquiry about your committee. And if you have responded, what did you say?
Okay. No, I think I missed that one because it would take me about 10 or 20 hours, and when I ran in for Congress in 2000, they called them, and I called them again this time, and they said it would cost me a penalty of about $200. So I have to judge what is a man's time worth. You can value your time at $8 an hour, you can value your time at $100 an hour, or there have been years where I've made $400,000 or $500,000 or more. You can value your time at $1,000 an hour. For me to spend 10 to 20 hours doing all this paperwork where I can pay $200 and spend 10 to 20 hours out there talking to the voters, I'll do it. So I checked with them and they said, sure, you can file it after, but there's a $200 penalty. I'm willing to pay that to spend my time campaigning, talking to the people, as opposed to some of my opponents, not all of them, who are talking to the PACs and the big dollar donors. Now, as far as corruption goes, someone asked a question about people go there and they're corrupted. My dad said that in life, no matter what you do, you should always have fun. I'm having a great time at this because I love the competition and I love the excitement and the enthusiasm, even though there's all these people slinging mud and dirt at you, and it's like not cool. It's not professional, and it's not following the rules of God and the Ten Commandments and some of the things that they're saying. But what it is, I got here with almost nothing. I built $1 million company. I lost that. I built another fortune. I'm fighting to hold on to that. So no matter how broke I am, money doesn't matter how wealthy I am. The idea is to have fun and be a good person. Some of you guys may not got that memo.
Okay, David, the question to you, and this must have been based on something you said earlier. Did you mean to say earlier that members of Congress should be able to vote from their home state? That they should not have to be in Washington to actually vote? Could you clarify, please?
You bet, absolutely, that is correct. Why do they want you back in Washington, D.C.? When you go back there, ladies and gentlemen, when you see the meetings that they're taking, members of Congress, they're not taking meetings with you and me. They're taking meetings with special interests, lobbyists, and party bosses all day long. They're outnumbered 5 to 1. You've got to get them out of Washington, D.C. With technology being the way it is, we should be able to vote securely from our district office. I would have a district office here in Thousand Oaks. I want to be surrounded by voters. I want to be surrounded by the people who, the constituents and the voters who helped put me there. Not by lobbyists, not by party bosses. Okay? And so that's something that's I'm very, very passionate about, and we've been talking a lot about. And again, the corruption that it used to take several years before these members of Congress used to cave in. So many would go back there. I think their intentions were good, their intentions were pure, but they hang around these folks so long that they end up caving after a period of time. Those folks end up contributing to their campaigns, and another vicious cycle starts. And we have to break that. There's things like Skype, video conferencing. You should only have to go back to Washington, D.C. once or twice a year. And also the expense to the taxpayers of that member of Congress, having a staff back in Washington, D.C. of 25, 30 staff members, and all of that could come to a halt. And again, this video electronic voting, I think is the way to do that.
Thank you. Julia, the question to you. You have been silent on some of the concerns Linda has raised regarding the Democratic literature purporting to describe her thinking. Would you please answer those concerns?
Well, there's been obviously some mail out there that is done by the Democratic, the DCCC mail. I think it's probably a little bit over the top, but there's mail out there. And I really would encourage everyone who objects to call the DCCC and call them and express your concerns. But I will make one point, and I have also have my own mail out there, and I've said it earlier in this forum, and that is, I don't know how you can protect or defend the Bush tax cuts for the very, very wealthy, and also protect Medicare. And I don't know how you say that you might caucus with Republicans when you get to Congress, when it is the House Republicans who are presenting time and time again budget proposals that want to gut Medicare. And so I'll stand by that issue. The other mail piece, call DCCC.
How about the women's right to choose?
Linda, we're going to move on to the next question, and you can answer when you wish. Linda, as you would expect, there's quite a few cards here asking for, and we've been through this before, who did you vote for president in 2008? Who will you be voting for president this fall? And if elected, will you vote for a Democrat as speaker? Who will you caucus with? You know what these questions are asking, and I'll give you a minute and a half to respond.
Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the... For 21 years, I was a Democrat. For 16 years, I was a Republican. The Republican Party has changed. I am no longer a Republican. I'm an independent.
Please hold the place.
I would like to, if I may continue, Mr. Mayor, and I don't think my time is up. I think that it is very telling that what I'm being attacked for, and this is a mailer from Julia Brownley saying I'm not for pro-choice, and that really bothers me. It also says that I want to end Medicare, and that really bothers me. But besides the fact that people who are supporting Julia Brownley are paying for these mailers, I want to point out that there's a lot more issues that we have to deal with than the partisanship. Think about it. How many here, for example, might be married to someone from the opposite party? I was, and I am now. And I think it's really important to know that that hyper-partisanship is causing these mailers to go out. What worse thing can you call someone if you're a Democrat? Julia Brownley saying I was really a Republican. That's like the worst thing you can call someone. What if you're a Republican? What's the worst thing you can call someone? Well, Strickland was calling me a Democrat. And that whole idea is what's wrong. And these kind of horrible attack mailers attacking me for my not being in a party is what's wrong with Congress right now.
Linda, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. And Jess, we have a question for you. And that is, can you tell us a little bit about your views on the bullet train and also global warming?
Well, I did take a ride on one bullet train, and that was in Shanghai, and we go very fast. That's on the bullet train. Now, as far as climate change is concerned, I'm sure, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, so I'm sure that us being here on Earth is causing something to happen. The emissions from our automobiles and everything else certainly make a difference. We do have to take a new look at how we harness wind, solar, and every other type of energy that's available to us. Unfortunately, we can't all be driving electric cars because they're more expensive than even an economy car. And some cars have stopped being produced now, unfortunately. For example, at the Port of Hueneme, we're doing everything we can to generate electrical power so that we don't have any emissions going out into the atmosphere, and we've cut down on our NOx considerably. We have a clean truck program there that's also being very successful to turn over trucks into clean burning fuels. Vessels are doing the same thing. So I am concerned with our environment, and we are taking steps, and I have personally participated in those steps to have a green port, and that's the business that I'm involved in right now, and that's what we're doing there. You have to understand, too, that energy is extremely important to our national defense. The Department of Defense is the single largest industrial user of energy in the world. So we do have to find those types of energies that will meet the needs of our national defense in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Al, same question to you. Your position on the bullet train, would you support federal funding for that, of course? And what is your position on global warming?
Okay, let's address global warming first. I know a little bit about science. I read Sir Isaac Newton's book on optics and followed in 2 or 3 different languages when I was in high school because I was inspired by an environmental professor who gave me a book. It was so far ahead of its time that the oil companies, through the Reagan administration, stopped printing. It's for every action, there's a reaction, equal force and opposite in direction. As far as global warming, that data was falsified. There were, as far as science goes, there's true science and there's false science. It's unfortunate that it was falsified, but they used to say, the scientists, that if Columbus were to sail off the edge of the earth, he would fall off and be eaten by sea monsters. I think it was Galileo, I'm not sure. When you get this old, you can't remember everything. He was declared a heretic or a lunatic, one of those ticks, for saying that the earth revolved around the sun. As far as global warming goes, the scientists said that it just isn't happening. They falsified some documentation, so that's a shame. As far as the bullet train goes, like I said, on Medicare, I need to do more research. I did more research. I found out about the D and the lobbies. But it's good. We need high-speed transportation. To give you an example, Senate and Congress fined General Motors, Chevron, and one other company, Firestone, for in the 50s, I learned this in a film class, tearing up the red car and designing the freeway so that we need a car, creating more pollution, more rubber, more gas, and now we're paying for $7 to rebuild rail in LA.
Stop you there. Thank you. David, same question to you. Your position on funding for high-speed rail and also global warming, your views.
Well, I think high-speed rail is an important, we need to have high-speed rail in this country. We're very, very behind when you look at many of our competitors around the world. They have it, we don't. And when you look at our transportation problems, not only in this country, but especially in our state, it definitely indicates that we need high-speed rail. I'm a big supporter of it. The current system that we have, the one that we have on the board right now, the big picture of it, I always like the big idea of it, but when we look at the specifics and the details of it, it's very concerning, and I think we need to go back to the drawing board when it comes to high-speed transportation, high-speed rail, but I'm very, very committed to it.
Thank you. Julia, same question to you. Your positions on federal funding for high-speed rail and also the effects of global warming. What are your views?
On higher speed rail, I am, again, very supportive of the concept. Actually met with Ray LaHood, Secretary of Transportation, maybe 6 weeks or so ago about this issue. Clearly, it's a priority for the Obama administration and the Secretary. And I'm very supportive, and I think we in California and in the nation need to come up with better transit systems in our country. The concern I have in the moment, being in the legislature, is with regards to the cost and the budget and so forth, and making sure that we really get that right. There is no question in my mind that as the population grows in California, and it will grow, that's a true fact, by expanding more and more airports is not going to be the solution. And I think that we need to be forward-thinking and looking into the future and figuring out how to do high-speed rail, but do it responsibly with the money that we have. With regards to AB 32, one of the best pieces of legislation ever signed in the state of California, and I think AB 32's goals are right on, and I think AB 32 is already, we're seeing it happen, leverage new technologies and innovations, new types of automobiles here in California that is going to be great for California's economy.
Thank you. And Linda, same question to you. Your views on global warming and also support for high-speed rail.
Well, I think the high-speed rail project that we've got going in the state of California has turned into a boondoggle. I think that's something like $1 million just in consultant fees went out before they've done any plans. Tremendous amounts of money, poor planning in terms of looking at trying to get one little section near Fresno instead of going where it's needed the most. So there's a lot of concerns with that, and I also have concerns about the special interests that might be pushing some agendas with it. But I agree, we need to be able to fund mass transit. Transit means buses here in Ventura County. And right now we have some buses that are standing room only and not the funds to increase that service. A lot of that has to do with the federal government and how they do spend funds. For example, we're paying $12 million for 950 people to ride MetroLink. Well, it's nice that they can ride MetroLink, but those monies could be used to help considerably more people get on the bus. We need to be able to find better ways for kids to be able to get to school on the bus too, when they need to. But let me get to the question about climate change. There's no doubt that man has an effect on climate change, and there are many things that we can do. And I was on the Air Resources Board Regional Targets Advisory Committee that looked at not only how to do it through standing facilities like smokestacks, automotive and transit and transportation caused greenhouse gas emissions, but also just the concept of land use and what we can do to make cities more walkable so people don't have to drive or commute.
Thank you. Before I go on to the next question, I'll just remind the audience, one of the things that the League does when we invite these candidates is we let them know that there is no independent video recording. It's out of respect to the candidates, that they don't have to worry about somebody using their image out of context. The City of Thousand Oaks is televising this. It's available on TOTV, and we'll have information. But if anyone here does have a video camera, I respectfully ask you to please not use it. Okay, we have not talked about foreign policy, and arguably this is one of the most important areas of what a representative is involved in. And Al, will begin with you. The question the person is asking, what are your views on foreign policy, especially in important areas such as nuclear North Korea, working with China, Iran, and Afghanistan?
China, Iran,
North Korea, and Afghanistan.
North Korea. Well, the nuclear problems in Iran and North Korea, as I said at the last debate, the Manhattan Project, which was brought together by a lot of German refugees, scientists, Einstein, who a genealogical society emailed me, I'm related to, but I don't believe it, and Oppenheimer created this. It's a terrible destructive force when you use it against people. It can be used for good to create energy, but it is very dangerous, as we see in Japan and at San Onofre. As far as Iran and Afghanistan, I don't understand it. I grew up in New York City, and my friends and I used to have elevator races in the World Trade Center. We each take a different elevator, so you get to the top first, people getting on and off. Can I help you with those boxes, ma'am? And 10 or 11 of the terrorists came out of Saudi Arabia, a company that nationalized the oil companies, that took away billions of dollars of assets from Exxon, Chevron, Texaco, the whole gamut of them. Why we went into Afghanistan, and I know why we went into Iran, because Saddam Hussein and the biggest hotel had Bush as a criminal in the tile, according to the LA Times. And, but Saudi Arabia, who stole billions of dollars from the oil companies where the terrorists came from, why we went into Iran and Afghanistan is beyond me. Why didn't we go into where the terrorists came from? With the force and money we used, we could have got those oil fields back.
Okay, thank you, Al. Same question to you, David. Your views on foreign policy, especially North Korea, China, Iran, Afghanistan.
Yeah, well, when it comes to, I think one of our most important things that we need to be talking about is Afghanistan. And one question we need to ask ourselves, why are we still there? I don't understand why we're still there. We've accomplished everything that we're going to accomplish there. We need, if you look at the not only human toll, but the amount of tour of duties that we're asking our men and women to be at, it's just gone, they're exhausted, we've overextended them, and we've really almost asked too much of them. It's time to return our troops back. And the other thing is we cannot afford, we need to get our financial house in order. We can no longer afford these wars. I mean, we couldn't afford them in the first place, but we need to do absolutely everything we possibly can to bring our troops home and bring them back immediately. And I think Afghanistan is we need to do that. And then when it comes, I think Iran is the big major problem that we're going to have, and we need to make sure we defend our partners in the Middle East, and that's Israel, our strongest and most important allies. So we need to, I think the President is doing a very good job of monitoring that and doing everything he possibly can behind the scenes to make sure there's not any conflict there. But if there is conflict, we need to make sure we support Israel.
Thank you. Julia, your views on foreign policy covering North Korea, China, Iran, Afghanistan.
Well, I'll start with Afghanistan, and I certainly believe and have said before that we need to withdraw our troops as quickly and as we possibly can, obviously without compromising any kind of security for the U.S. And we need to work, the U.S. needs to work with the people of Afghanistan to try to very much form a stable government there as well. With North Korea, they need to get rid of their nuclear arsenal, and I think the United States at this particular point is emphasizing diplomacy. I think we need to continue down that path at the moment. I think it's moving slowly, but I think diplomacy and an effort to really have success, I guess, is the route of diplomacy. And then with Israel, I have been challenged on this issue a couple of different times, and I just want to say unequivocally that I do not support Iran acquiring any kind of nuclear capacity. I don't think it's in Israel's best interest to strike Iran unilaterally at this particular point in time. We need to work with our partners and our allies to build coalitions in the Middle East. But let me say, Israel is one of our strongest allies, and I will support Israel unequivocally.
Thank you. Linda, same questions to you. Your views on foreign policy, especially around North Korea, China, Iran, Afghanistan.
Thank you. I think with China, we have some good opportunities as they are a huge market for the United States wares. But I also have concerns about their human rights, so we need to do what we can through negotiation. With Iran, I think for sure they don't get the bomb. The nuclear capability would be not only not in our United States' best interest, but not in the best interest of the Middle East, and particularly for Israel. And I think we have to be strong for Israel. They are our best friend in the Middle East. We have to assure that they survive and that they aren't challenged. And Iran it threatens the state of Israel. And so we need to do what we can from certainly sanctions and negotiations, but we have to be there for our friend. As far as Afghanistan, I think we need to get our troops home, as I've mentioned. North Korea, again, another situation where we need to get them to the table, and there have been some efforts towards that to see that they also don't become nuclear capable. Syria, and I know that they've also been testing some bombs too, which is a big concern. Syria also, we saw with the Arab Spring, it was very heartening to see people rise up, and it took incredible courage. And it seemed like it was working for a while, but now I know that President Assad has clamped down again, but we need to do what we can to help people get democracy through the proper ways.
Thank you, Linda. And Jess, let's hear your views on foreign policy. North Korea, China, Iran, Afghanistan.
It's a lot of countries, but even as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I'm certainly in favor of bringing our troops home. As a veteran, I understand what they go through, and I don't think we should be putting them through this any longer. North Korea, Iran, China, these are all issues that can be held with either sanctions or diplomacy. I believe in this. Especially Iran is a very dangerous, very volatile situation, and we have to be sure to stay there through diplomacy. The price of freedom is constant vigilance. That's what Thomas Jefferson said. And I believe that our best policy in foreign policy is to have the best intelligence that is possible. We need to stay forward, engaged in intelligence, so that we do not go into these situations in a casual manner. We need to protect our resources. We need to protect our men and women and not put them in these dangerous positions without very good cause. And as we all know, the way to win a nuclear war is to make sure that one never starts. So we do need to stay engaged. We cannot kill all our enemies. We cannot imprison all our enemies. So we have to negotiate for the good of our country. America has to be strong. Everything has to be left on the table, all options, but we need to use our diplomacy.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get a few more individual questions in before we do the closing statements. David, we're starting with you on this one. I was asking, as far as campaign finance reform, what would be your solution to campaign finance reform, especially after the decision with Citizens United?
Well, we've seen in this congressional race the horrible decision the Supreme Court has made. I mean, we thought that, we knew this was going to happen in the presidential race, that big money was going to trickle in, but I think all of us are a little bit surprised that it's already happened at the congressional level. I mean, we have decision makers back in Washington, D.C., and these super PACs that have come in and have chosen a candidate in this race, and they are spending a tremendous amount of money on negative ads. It's one of the most negative campaigns I've seen in a long time. And it first hit me when, Julia, when you got into this race, when you had all your supporters call me and harass my voicemail, fill my voicemail up with harassing calls, my private cell phone with harassing calls, trying to push me out of this race. Then you shifted your attention to Linda, and these mailers are out of control. I mean, there are so many of them. And when you say call the DCCC, that's your buddies, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, they're the ones that have endorsed you. They're your buddies. So that's a real cop out to say call the DCCC.
Thank you. Julia, here's your questions. You have a minute and a half. For what reasons do you believe that you have a better chance of defeating Tony Strickland, especially if you've never lived in Ventura County? So you have 90 seconds to handle everything.
Well, I'm very disappointed that I can't answer the first question that you asked. But
You're free to use your 90 seconds however you wish.
Okay, thank you. Look, this is a very important race. It's a transformational moment for Ventura County, and I believe that I can win the primary here, go on to the general, and beat Tony Strickland. That's what I believe I can do. I am running I'm running here because I believe in real issues that really concern real people. I have represented a portion of Ventura County for the last 6 years. I know this community, but most importantly, this is about real people and real issues and getting things done for the people here in Ventura County. And I believe that I have a strong track record that demonstrates my ability to get things done for people who live here in Ventura County. Anybody can look at my track record. It's out there. And I believe that this is a very important, pivotal, transformational time for Ventura County. I look forward to having more in-depth conversations with all of the people of Ventura County. I would like to respond to the first question and just say that I'm the author of the California Disclose Act here in California and working very hard on this issue and very close to seeing success. Thank you.
You will have your closing statement. Linda, a question for you, and this one refers to your past. You have been a supporter of transit here locally, but the Republicans' proposed transportation bill would cut funding for rail, buses, and the types of transit that you've recommended in the past, including ones that reduce greenhouse emissions. So the question is, I know you want to be independent, but aren't these issues where there is a clear moral need and choice important for you to be able to vote on?
I not only want to be an independent, Mr. Marin, I am an independent. And I think your question indicates that perhaps I'm going to side with Republicans. To me, I love the idea that I can vote based on the issue. And I certainly support transit. So that opens it up. And I do want to also say that I very much appreciate that you had the cameras turned off, because wherever I go, they call it political ambush. I have been filmed and photographed. You'll see it on television. Probably this night's session where they were photographing me is so that it will help Julia Brownley's ads. But it has come to such a state of our nation that we have candidates willing to lie to get elected, to say my opponent's not for pro-choice, or my opponent will end Medicare. To me, it is so important that we have this pivotal time, that we have the ability to have someone in Congress who isn't stuck to an ideological position, but actually can listen to all the issues. I'll support a bill. I don't care if it's signed by a Republican or a Democrat. If it's a good bill, I would support it. And I think Congress members need to have that ability to have that trust that you can actually work with both sides of the aisle. And so I feel very strongly if we can elect someone from Ventura County who has lived here for decades, we'll have someone that will truly represent our county's interests, not the parties.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very much. Jess, a question for you, too, actually. The Keystone Pipeline. Would you support allowing the Keystone Pipeline to be built? And also, what are some of your ideas to keep jobs in California rather than them going out of state?
Well, first of all, concerning the Keystone Pipeline, I think it's been, the route has been changed so that it doesn't cause any environmental problems. That's the latest information I have, and it would create jobs for many people. Now, keeping jobs, as I said earlier, every year I go to Washington a couple of times and I work with the Department of Commerce and the Department of Labor, and there are a lot of opportunities, but we have not had the ability to bring those to fruition because we have not had leadership in Washington that's willing to kick those doors open. There are plenty of grant programs available here for small businesses. There's also money available for studies to find out which issue, on what initiatives we can create jobs. I've been looking outside of the district, looking to bring in some light manufacturing here. There's availability to put veterans to work, especially disabled veterans. There's also ability to put types of industry in here that can put senior citizens to work. These things are all available. The problem is that we've never had anyone that has the political will like I do to make these things happen. That's what I do on a daily basis. I work to create economic development and to bring jobs into our community. And this is what I would do as your congressman. And with a great passion and with a great joy, believe me. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, a question for you.
Sure.
Our Congress, sadly, seems to be powerfully influenced by the K Street lobbyists. Do you have any policies or practices that you would use with respect to being lobbied by all of these special interests?
Okay. Money isn't everything. It helps, but still at the end of the day, the only way to fight big money is to expose it if it does bad, and to praise it and expose it if it does good. And then it'll trickle on down through all of the different candidate races next time around. You just have to bring it out in the light. They're working in dark shadows, slipping envelopes. it isn't really that important to me. I have gone after no endorsements. I have a stack of endorsements that high. I'd rather be speaking to voters. I'm really seeking not much of any other people's money. I'm spending most of my own money on it because I don't want to sell out. If I had a choice of taking money, I'd take money profitably from religious groups, because if you got to sell out, you got to best to sell out to God. Now, this basically boils down to people can't see the forest from the trees past this June election, but it boils down to pure and simple who can beat Tony Strickland. Now, I'm not saying it's like Mae West in that movie, Every Day is a Holiday, selling you the Brooklyn Bridge, some of my opponents, but really, think about it. Tony Strickland will eat Julia Brownley and Linda Parks because of their party changes and their flip-flops, and the votes just aren't there on Israel, their failure on education, their failure on the environment, and I believe, although Mr. Cruz, Thine, and Mr. Herrera will disagree, I'm the only one that can beat Tony Strickland come November, so vote for me.
Thank you. And that actually completes the amount of questions that I have time for, but it's been really tremendous questions from the audience, and candidates, even though I can't get some of these in, I just want to give you a couple of highlights of what's on people's minds out here. There's questions about where do you stand on health care, where do you stand on the DREAM Act, where do you stand on regulation of internet poker, and where do you stand on just the growth in the planet as far as the number of people and the finite amount of resources. There's many other good questions as well that we didn't have time to get to. It is time to begin our closing statements. We're going to go in the reverse order, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for the closing statement. And we will begin at this time with Mr. Jess Herrera.
Thank you. Recently, the Ventura County Star, in a front page article, noted that the Port of Hueneme is one of the stabilizing factors in the economy in Ventura County. Stabilizing factor in the economy of Ventura County. I have been there for 17 years working to make it so. It is within your district that this economic engine resides and that it vibrates through the entire community, creating jobs and economic development. This is what I can do for this district if you allow me to go to Congress. I can work for you. I have negotiated, as I said, with the United States Navy. I've sat across from the Secretary of the Navy, from congressmen, for senators, to make things happen for this community. But there are some things that you need a little bit more oomph for, and that is indeed a congressman to get those things accomplished. If you're really serious, look at my record, see what I've done. I'm not working for the state, I'm working for you in creating those jobs. I am a viable candidate because people know me and they vote for me because they know I do a good job. And when you know about me, I'm sure that you would vote for me. Because that is the issues that we are facing today, is jobs. I'm not a career politician. I work for a living. I don't need the income. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do at the right time for this community. If you were going to hire somebody to change the economy of Ventura County, you're looking at him. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next closing statement will be from Linda Parks. And Linda, just to give you an idea, there were quite a few questions for you. Some asking about changing to become independent. You've talked about that. Also questions about the Do It Center and the Home Depot. That's out there as well. That's something you might talk to somebody afterwards about. And at this time, you'll have 2 minutes as well.
If I'm elected to Congress, I am going to work with Jess Herrera, because I know there are some great things we can do at the Port of Hueneme, and one of those things is be able to get some good container shipping storage area so that our agriculture, our farmers will be able to put their crops in there and be able to ship them to China. Right now, just for that lack of storage, they're losing a great potential resource for money. And I have a business roundtable I've put together, and I've gotten some great suggestions. I feel if you have good people giving you expert advice, you're going to make good decisions. So I would definitely work with Mr. Herrera. I also want to point out that this is a historic moment. If I'm elected, I'll be the only independent in the House of Representatives. That's something big. And what it does is it sends a message from Ventura County to Congress that we're sick and tired of the hyper-partisanship that's leading to these kind of mailers that play us for morons. Some of you may not get them, but you know, again, they're just one after the other trying to say that I'm with Sarah Palin and Bush and Cheney and I'm an elephant. And to me, it's not about the party, it's about the issue. And more importantly, it's about having people who aren't beholden. I don't take any special interest money, and that is a huge difference. It is huge. There is so much money that are pushing the candidates to make bad decisions, and maybe that's why Julia Brownley has done these attack mailers. It's all about the money. And how refreshing if we can get someone in Congress who doesn't take any special interest money, who isn't beholden to any party, but is there and committed, as I am, to my county, to Ventura County. I know this area, I know its needs, and I know if I'm elected to Congress, we're going to have someone there who speaks the truth, and someone who's there only because they're committed to Ventura County and the city of Westlake Village. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate, Ms. Julia Brownley.
Thank you, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters and David for hosting this important forum this evening. The voters have a clear choice in this election, and I hope I've clearly demonstrated to you what I stand for and my commitment to work my hardest to represent you well in Congress. I will take every action possible to get Ventura County's economic engines running on all cylinders. I will stand up for the middle class and hard-working families. I will stand for women's rights and continue to fight for women's equality. I will continue to fight for a quality education for our children, for quality health care for all, a clean environment, and for the protection of Medicare and Social Security, to ensure a brighter and more secure future for all of us, for our children, and for many more generations to come. I am most honored to be supported by Senators Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, Congresswoman Lois Capps, Supervisor Steve Bennett and Kathy Long, Planned Parenthood, Sierra Club, and the League of Conservation Voters, the Ventura County Stonewall Democrats, the Democratic clubs in Ventura County, as well as nurses, sheriffs, firefighters, teachers, and many, many community leaders throughout Ventura County. They believe I will do the right thing in Congress, but your support is most important, and I hope you will give me the opportunity to earn it. With your counsel and with your advice, I know we can do a better job for Ventura and a better job for our country. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
And please no applause. You'll have a chance in just a few moments. And our next speaker is David Cruz-Thane.
I also want to take a moment and thank the League of Women's Voters for putting this on and all your hard work in doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, something you need to know about me, I am not a career politician. I believe that the founders intended for shopkeepers and business owners and farmers and teachers to go back and do the job for a period of time, and then you return and you let someone else go. It was never supposed to be for the rest of your life. We can't get into a situation like we've had in the past for the last 26 years with Elton Gallagher. We have folks that are back there for 25, 30, 35 years that are completely disconnected to what working class families are going through, completely disconnected to what small businesses are going through. And if you give me this opportunity, I will go back there and fight for working class citizens. I will work hard for small businesses. I've been in this race the longest. I've been working it the hardest. Been back, this is our last debate, and I think this is my 5th debate so far. And I want to thank, there's a lot of familiar faces, I want to thank all of you for coming out. I also am not taking any special interest money. I believe that we have to be free of that. I'm also, of all the $100,000 plus that I've raised have all come from individuals, no special interest money. I'm a big believer in term limits, as I mentioned before. If 8 years is enough for the President of the United States, it should be more than enough for any member of the House of Representatives. And with this electronic voting, we must be able to vote from our home office, district office, and be surrounded by voters, not be surrounded by the party bosses and the special interests and the lobbyists. If you want to preserve the American dream, You should send somebody who's actually lived it. I've lived it. I would humbly ask you for your vote.
Thank you. And our next candidate is Al Goldberg.
Well, when I come in second on June 5th, I want to hire Julia Brownley, speechwriter. That was great. Anyway, everybody's saying how they're just going to go to Congress and get along and make it all, la la. And that's not what the American people need. The American people need someone who will go in there and fight to fix it and fight to make it right, not just to let it go on and get worse year after year after year. My family, part of my family goes back to George Washington serving at Valley Forge. The founding fathers were paid $6 per day per diem. They had no idea that they'd be making thousands of stupid laws and that all of these politicians would be stealing from the Treasury. I'm very happy to talk to you tonight. The current political office holders for the last 10 to 20 years have paved the way for the biggest economic tsunami my generation have ever seen. We must fight against the injustice of corruption and fraud and for an honest government, but I can't do it alone. We must all stand up and fight for it across the country. The deficit of ethics here tonight on this panel, the deficit of morals, integrity, and truthfulness in our government officials has run rampant through the land like a plague. The theft from the government treasury by elected officials is sinful. We must bring back ethics, morality, truthfulness, and integrity to government. So as an example of your children, Lee Iacocca, one of the captains of industry, wrote an autobiography where he wrote, "There used to be leaders in this country that would inspire us to do better. Where have they all gone?" In the last 20, 30 years in private industry, I've motivated and I've inspired people to do better. I want to do the same thing for the country, not because I need this job, like my other opponents and their stepping stones to their political futures for a higher office than this, because someone has to step up and do it, and I want to fix the country. I'm the type of person, I saw a wildfire in Ojai, jumped over the fence, put it out, jumped back over, shattered my heel. I was living on a horse ranch in Malibu where if you shovel the you-know-what, you could ride horses on the beach for film students, and a friend of mine from Texas pulled out a gun, 6 people in the room, I charged him and took the gun away from us. I see it with the country. Someone needs to stand up and fix this mess the politicians have made. Thank you. Vote for me.
Thank you, Al. And before we do the applause, just one quick thing. I have several announcements, but you're absolutely right. They deserve a wonderful round of applause. Before we wrap up, I want to point out that this was hosted by the League of Women Voters, but it was also co-sponsored by AAUW. We're grateful to them for participating, and an event like this cannot happen without volunteers. I'd like to thank, we had Jeanette, Pat, Helen, Jerry, Gus on the timing, we had Howard, Jack, and several others I don't have their names for, but I think they all deserve a round of applause too. We have some membership information if you're interested in learning more about the League of Women Voters out there, and I assume AAUW. I also have some sad news that I was given during the event. I wanted to let you all know it here and now. Councilman Tom Glancy has passed away, and those of us who knew him, worked with him, know that he was an extraordinary gentleman, and we will all miss him. And I think if we could just take a few moments of silence, please. Thank you all very much. I'm David Marin. We're grateful to the City of Thousand Oaks. Thank you so much for coming. And if you notice, we ended right on time. Thank you.
What?
Linda Parks is playing.
Well, she's a good, well,
person that just passed away.
showmanship. She's not.
Because of the people that are saying that. Is she playing?
I don't know. I mean, this woman is. I've known her for 20 years. It's ridiculous. Because
What they're saying about her? Is that